Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're watching. When you're watching this video, how have you been? Welcome to the week 3 teachings of our class. Hope you've had a fantastic previous week. So quickly, this week we shall be looking at 3 key topics. Number 1, define project scope, goals, and deliverables. Number 2, introduction to the work breakdown structure. And number 3, the basis of planning and scheduling. So we shall just be diving right into it because of time. 1, project scope. What is a project scope? The scope of a project is a set of boundaries for the project within which there are defined goals the project is progressing towards. Beginning the project with a properly planned scope of the project ensures all the project goals and objectives are accomplished without any delay. The project scope is a detailed outline that describes all aspects of the project, such as who are the key stakeholders, what are the project resources, timeline, deliverables, and other project-related activities. It explains all the processes and answers questions such as what the project is about or what or is not included in it. Now, the goal for defining the project scope together is to gather precise information that reflects all requirements. That way, chance of meeting project stakeholders' expectation of deliverables increases. Now, this is just self-explanatory. The project scope, just as the word scope implies, encompasses everything that falls into the scope of a given project. So say you are given a project, you have to define, okay, what am I doing? What does this project, what am I delivering? What time am I expected to round up this project? So that's what the project scope is. Now, before we go further, I want to tell you there's something called a product scope. Now, beside the project scope, there's also a product scope. There are several differences between them, and they should not be confused. It describes the work performed to deliver a product, service, or results. The term project scope itself can sometimes imply the inclusion of project scope as a part of it. The product scope should be a separate statement from the project scope statement, but both should be used to establish a clear understanding of what the project aims to achieve. Product scope defines the future function of a project deliverables. Now, a product scope is not actually part of what you are supposed to do, but I just needed to chip it in. For most of you who do your researches and study online, that you come across a project scope. Now, what are the key elements of a project scope? What should be inclusive when preparing a project scope? Number 1, we have the tasks and activities to be performed, which is as very important as everything else. You have to include the tasks and activities to be performed by every person involved in the project. What will the stakeholders do? What will the project manager do? What are the team members doing? You have to have it highlighted here so everyone sees their role. Number 2, the department or teams involved. Say you're giving a house to build, you have to identify what and who would I be using to build a house. Who would I need? Would I need a plumber? Would I need a mason? Would I need who and who at this stage of the job would I need? It is needed and should be highlighted in the project scope. Number 3, we have the technology tools or platform to be used. Yes, so you're giving a event to manage. That's probably a NGO's events. Now, say you are giving these events, you have to know that, okay, for those events, we would need a caterer. For these events, we'll be doing some sort of publicity. So we would need to use either a social media manager or boosting on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever app you want to use. So you need to highlight the technologies and tools and the platforms you would be using to do this project. Number 3, constraints. Yes, every project has a constraint. Every project has what might limit it if not met. So your constraint can be financial constraints. Say you want to reach 10,000 people in publicity and you only have resources to do publicity for 5,000 people. That is a constraint. And also your timeline. That is why this project scope is needed, because the timeline must be defined so as you don't what's the word now? You don't under-deliver to your stakeholders involved. We have number 5, exclusion. What the project will not cover. Yes, you should define, okay, what I'm doing now, this is where it stops. It does not go further than this. It does not go further than after the event. You don't have to meet me to start maybe trying to clear up and do a follow up on stuff like that. I don't know. But it should have exclusion, what the project will not cover. A good project scope statement includes inclusion, exclusion, deliverables, constraints, and final approval. Now, we are moving forward to the project scope statements. The project scope statement is a document that provides everyone involved with a clear understanding of the importance of the project. It mainly documents all the essential project information. It explains the project boundary and marks each team member's responsibility and sets up procedure for how completed work will be verified and approved. The project scope statement is the more detailed document that statement of work. The function of project scope statement is to help the project team remain focused on the tasks by providing them with guidelines for making decisions about change requests during the project. Now, the project management scope statement, otherwise known as a scope document, usually consists of the following elements. Number one, we have the introduction. Yes, the project scope statement must have an introduction. Here, I wrote the introduction provides an overview of the entire project. It is a detailed breakdown of all the tasks that the project team would perform, and it contains any important elements that might impact the outcome. We have number two, the project scope. Now, the project scope, as we earlier defined, is the sort of the main part to define the project scope statements. The project scope should explain what project does and does not include, helping managers avoid confusion from project team and members and stakeholders. Yes. So this will help you not get confused along the line because it defines what is being done by everyone, actually. We have the exclusion. So the scope exclusion should also be stated. Exclusion can be anything that is not going to be part of the project or its results. This refers to everything that is not factored in while planning projects, just like I mentioned earlier. Exclusion is anything that when it is not included in the project should be considered the different terms, and it is just anything not factored into the original project scope. Actually, that's what an exclusion is. Then we have the deliverables. So the deliverables are measurable outcome indicating success completion of the project. Now, as a project manager, you should not overpromise or overstate your competence to your stakeholders, because one, there are some things that are quite achievable in all things being fair, and there are some things which you cannot achieve probably to a timeline, to a specific budget. So you should state and have a deliverable that, okay, if you are giving me 10,000 naira to do this social media publicity, I will be limited to only 10 people per se. I'm just saying, I don't know. So you should state it there to the stakeholders and everybody involved that this is what is achievable with this available resource. And it says this part of the project scope statement should also include milestone, yes, as I said, and exact due dates of delivery. So this deliverables mainly deals with your timeline, your budgeting, your desired result, actually. Basically your timeline and budgeting. It helps you know that, okay, in 10 days I should be able to have reached 10 people while doing my publicity. Or with 10,000 naira, I should be able to reach 10 people while doing my publicity. Then constraints, yes, a constraint. Constraint is actually very important in the project scope statement. So constraints are describing possible limit of the project that might have a negative impact on its outcome. This can include resources, budgets, timing, lack of information. Just like I said, you tell your clients that I cannot achieve publicizing this event to 100 people with this 10,000 naira you're giving me. It's a constraint to me. So if you want to reach 100 people, you'd be willing to pay and provide resources that would reach 100 people. You cannot give me resources for 40 people and expect me to maximize and utilize it in reaching 100 people. So there are constraints in most projects. Then we have the acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria is an agreement on how the success of the project will be measured. Having a well-defined acceptance criteria is useful for making sure there is no scope creep. Now, the last thing, and lastly, there should be a final approval. You see, in this element of the scope statement, the customer signs off on the scope statement, confirming that all the parameters which we've mentioned, which includes The parameters range include the deliverables, the constraints, the acceptance criteria. All that we've listed up have been included, and the document is complete and accurate. Now, what are the key elements of a project scope statement? We have number one, the project objectives, which is simple. It's self-explanatory what the project aims to achieve. Number two, we have the major deliverables. This is the specific product, service, or results that the project will produce. We have number three, the project requirements. This is the condition or capabilities that must be met. We have number four, the project boundaries, what is inside and outside the scope of the project. We have number five, the assumptions. These are factors considered true for planning purposes. We have number six, the constraints. Those are the limitation or the restriction affecting the project. We have number seven, the acceptance criteria, like we just talked about, a condition that must be met for deliverables to be accepted. Now note, a lot of these elements in the project statement are similar to the elements from the project charter, but the should not be confused. Okay, so I decided to state this here because as we go further, we'll be talking a lot about the project charter. Now, what is a scope creep? A scope creep refers to a situation in which changes occur after the project has been started and the changes are not defined or expected within the scope statements. For example, usually those situations are when part of the project ends up requiring more work due to a bad plan. The occurrence of a scope creep can have negative impact on this project timeline, quality of deliveries or budget. Now, let me just explain this in construction language. Actually, that's like one of the best language to understand. Now, if you were contracted to build a bungalow, let's say a bungalow, and you're provided resources for a bungalow. Now, over time in your course of construction, and you've gotten to a certain level, probably the DPC, and your client comes and say, "Oh no, I don't want a bungalow again. I want a duplex." Now, a duplex is quite more expensive than a bungalow and costs more time of construction, more financial resources, more more people involved in the construction of a duplex. Now, at this point, a project creep has happened because it was not originally planned for in the project. So what do you do? Now, in construction, there's what we call variation and claims. It is done in construction. It's a constructional term where at the end of the day, you and your client sit down and you check and balance what was spent and what was not used and what will be remunerated to you as the project manager in charge. Now, it can also apply in general project management. Now, you can choose to do it before you proceed at the time in which the change is occurring. Or if it's something minimal, you could go on with your seed project and happen to redo the variation at a later time. So, I said in order to avoid scope creep, management of the project scope needs to be effective and have good communication. Now, just to avoid scope creep, that's why you need to have an effective project scope that defines and make sure the stakeholders understand what they are signing up into. Now, importance of defining the project scope. I wrote here, it helps prevent scope creep and guides planning and execution. 1. It serves as guideline, providing easy orientation and helping managers assign tasks, schedule work, and budget. Yes. It also helps team members focus on objectives. Yes. Number 4, it reduces risks such as over budgeting or expanding beyond planned limits, which is very important. It prevents project creep and help align the project to its main objective. Now, clear scope ensures projects stay on track and avoid misunderstanding.